Hey, besties.
Hey.
Welcome back to another episode of the Hello Bestie podcast. I'm Maggie.
I'm Tashima.
And it's book club.
Woo-woo!
If you guys recall, today we are going to be discussing The Women by Kristen Hanna. All right, so I will go ahead and read a quick synopsis of it before we get into our book club questions. And just a shout out to bookclubs.com, who is providing the synopsis and book club questions that we're going to be discussing today.
Thank you.
Women can be heroes. When 20-year-old nursing student Frankie McGrath, hears these words, it is a revelation. Raised in the sun-drenched, idyllic world of Southern California and sheltered by her conservative parents, she has always prided herself on doing the right thing. But in 1965, the world is changing, and she suddenly dares to imagine a different future for herself. When her brother ships out to serve in Vietnam, she joins the Army Nurse Corps and follows his path. As green and inexperienced as the men sent to Vietnam to fight, Frankie is overwhelmed by the chaos and destruction of war. Each day is a gamble of life and death, hope and betrayal. Friendships run deep and can be shattered in an instant. In war, she meets and becomes one of the lucky, the brave, the broken, and the lost. But war is just the beginning for Frankie and her veteran friends. The real battle lies in coming home to a changed and divided America, to angry protesters, and to a country that wants to forget Vietnam. The Women is the story of one woman gone to war, but it shines a light on all women who put themselves in harm's way and whose sacrifice and commitment to their country has too often been forgotten. A novel about deep friendships and bold patriotism, The Women is a richly drawn story with a memorable heroine whose idealism and courage under fire will come to define an era. That's a pretty solid description.
Yeah. It's a mouthful.
So first question, do you think The Women was a good title for this book?
Yes. I think it was perfect.
I agree.
Even before you get to the end and it kind of like comes full circle, it was a good title.
I think it was the perfect title
to
describe this. So how did Frankie's decision to serve as an Army nurse in Vietnam impact her life trajectory? And do you think she would have had an easier path if she had conformed to her family's expectations?
I think that she would have had a much easier life, but I don't think she would have been fulfilled. I think she would have ended up basically like her mom. Just with her curiosity and her desire for things that was established very early in the book, that just didn't seem like it was her.
I agree. I do think her life would have been easier, but I think she would have been very unhappy.
Yeah.
She just would have had a cookie cutter life that she sees modeled for her, and it's not a bad life, but it's not an enjoyable life. It's not something that she desired.
Yeah.
But she would have saved herself a lot of heartbreak, a lot of everything, had she not decided to do that.
Yeah.
Discuss the bonds of friendship that developed between Frankie, Barb, and Ethel. How did their friendship help them survive the war and cope with its aftermath?
I think their friendship was so beautiful.
I loved it. I love how different they all were, too.
Yeah. And that they came from all different walks of life, different areas from the U.S., and they were all in this one place, and all those things didn't matter. You know, her saying, admittedly, I'd not really ever been around a Black person before. And even though, was it Barb?
Barb.
Even though Barb had her own opinions with things that were happening, you know, socially and politically, that never impacted their friendship.
Right.
It just gave Frankie more of a view into a life that she'd never been exposed to. The whole thing is great.
I love that Barb wasn't just Black. She was very Afrocentric.
Yeah.
Huge Afro, you know, super proud to be Black, very much so. For a Caucasian person who's not used to being around Black people to be exposed, and then to be exposed in that way.
Right.
Whereas we're doing this over here, but my family is back home protesting racism.
Right.
My family is back home doing these other things. I just think that's good
Learning
visibility.
about Black Panthers and all, like you said, the protests and things that were happening. And I think in terms of the writing, as soon as they established that she was Black, I was kind of like, here we go.
Same. Same. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's just get this over with.
Like
Give us our
you did it just to put one
stereotypical,
in there. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and that was not
It
what it
wasn't.
was about. Like, it was not about, it was, this person is from Montana and they have a farm, and this is this person, they're from the city, and this is what they go through, and that was literally it.
Yep.
Like, you rare, I think that was the only time it established what her race was.
Right.
And in terms of the narrator, I really appreciated them not trying to sound black.
I appreciate that too.
That in terms of that, tasteful.
It was
Like,
narrated by Julia Whalen, which I
yeah,
love
you're a
Julia
big
Whalen.
fan.
I am. Yeah, I love her voice.
They did a really good job.
What did you think of the hospital scenes?
In Nam,
Yes.
I thought that in terms of the writing, I thought it was great. I visualized it all. My heart was pumping. The stress, the yelling, all of the stuff. It was very well written, like the descriptions and all that. Um, but in terms of, like, I guess related to Frankie,
Mm-hmm.
scary,
Absolutely.
very scary.
There was a lot in just, obviously I don't work in the medical field. I've never worked in an ER or anything like that outside of what I've seen on TV. That's all I know about it. But I think the writing, like you said, was very descriptive. My heart was pumping. I could feel myself. I could imagine being in the room and seeing
Right.
all of this happening, which is good writing.
Like, you almost felt like you were not assisting the surgery, but you're like in the back,
Mm-hmm.
like the person who's dabbing the forehead.
Right.
You're just there and you're witnessing all these things happening.
And being thrown into it too, because there is no, she went from being
Mm-hmm.
kind of a hand holder to people who were dying and how they had to quickly diagnose if we have a chance of saving them, we're going to help them and we put them over there. If we know they're going to die, we just need to put them over here and you can sit and hold their hand because we know that you aren't ready to be involved with this. But you got to have a quick turnaround because we need you here helping us do all of this stuff. And the one soldier who, I think he made it to the hospital twice, if I'm not mistaken. But
Oh, the black guy?
yeah, that had the prom picture
Yeah.
in his pocket, and it's like, I'm gonna tell your mama, and this and that. It's like just really, you don't realize how many people just made the ultimate sacrifice by going over and doing that.
Yeah.
Just kids.
And it doesn't matter what, in terms of Vietnam, it didn't matter what your nationality was. You were fighting for your country.
Mm-hmm.
That part, and for Frankie, the main character, to not have really been exposed to other races,
Mm-hmm.
to see that she treated everyone the same, gave everyone the same amount of attention and respect on their way out, in memory of her brother who had passed away like months earlier,
right,
in Vietnam. That part was, it's just like heart-wrenching. And you understood why she was doing what she was doing, but what a reality check to have enlisted to be with your brother, and then right before you actually deploy, you find out that he died.
Right. That was very sad. I didn't cry at the brother's death as I did some other ones in the book, but it was very sad. And then just her parents' reaction when, they have this whole heroes wall and the dad is like, look at all this. And she's just thinking, I can get on that wall. And then for them to be like, wait, what? This doesn't apply to you.
Right.
You go and you get married, you find a good husband, do your little nursing thing. But once you become a wife, you have kids and you don't need to worry about any of this stuff.
Yeah.
So to have the brother's friend be there and say, women can be heroes too. I could see how that could be very impactful for her when she's about to be led down a life that she doesn't want.
Right. And never seeing herself having an opportunity to be a hero.
Right.
And somebody's like, no, you can be a hero.
Mm-hmm.
You can do really great things.
Right. Discuss the treatment of nurses when they returned from Vietnam. Were you surprised by the lack of support and recognition they received as veterans? And why do you think that was the case?
I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised at...
Well, did you know a lot about Vietnam before reading this book?
I knew some, not a whole lot.
I would say same.
I knew that it was a war that was supposed to have never happened. I knew that there were a lot of people who went over there and then came back and weren't treated properly. And I knew that there were a lot of people who came back over with drug addictions and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So that part of it I knew
That kind
in
of sums
terms
up
of
what I knew
like
about it as well.
men, women, all like that stuff I
Right.
didn't know,
Mhm.
but I knew there were a lot of people who came back that were just mutilated.
Yes.
No,
Emotionally,
mentally,
physically.
yeah,
Mhm.
physically, all the ways that a
Mhm.
person could be harmed. Yeah, that part I knew,
Okay.
like very basic things.
Okay.
But I like her getting off the airplane and having people spit on her and not pulling over for her, yelling things at her, like taxis won't stop for her or they'll slow down just to make her think that they're gonna let
Mhm.
her in and then they drive away.
Because she's in
Um,
her army uniform.
right.
Mhm.
Just the level of disrespect at that time, I think, blew my mind.
I agree.
Because I know that um, even now there are people who have very strong opinions about it. And, my father being a vet, I have strong opinions about it in myself, but
Mhm.
I also went through my own transition where, this was a lifestyle that I grew up in,
Mhm.
and then being angry for that lifestyle
Right.
and saying, not caring about it and feeling very much of like, not that it shouldn't exist, but,
Like, what was all that for if this is how we get treated afterwards?
yeah. And
Mhm.
then, like feeling, for me, it was more like there was a period where I was looking at vets in the same way where, if I heard somebody that had PTSD and it's like, well, what did you expect was going to happen?
Mhm.
And I had more of that dismissive opinion about
I would
people
agree.
who had served.
Yes.
But, that was like younger days.
Mhm.
Now that I have matured, I understand a little bit more about politics and how these wars come about and the roles different countries play and people and all that. Um, I feel like I've come full circle of coming back and saying thank you so much
Right.
for putting your life on the line so that I basically can sleep at night
Mhm.
without wondering if somebody's going to barge in here, bomb the country.
Right.
I don't have those fears.
Right.
And there are thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people who have lived and died and served to give all of us the opportunity to
Right.
be able to do all the things that we
Mhm.
do. Your First Amendment, your Fifth Amendment, your whatever
Mhm.
amendment wouldn't be possible. That was a fuzz. Wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the people who have served.
Right.
And the fact that these people don't get as much respect is, I put this in the same category of teachers. Like, how dare you mistreat anybody who is really the foundation of this country?
I agree. I was very upset hearing
Yeah.
that and reading that, and that happened a lot.
Yeah.
And like you see all of these horrible things, visions you can never get out of your head. You can barely sleep at night because you might get bombed. Everywhere you're traveling to, you have to hop on a helicopter. Meanwhile, people are trying to shoot down every helicopter they see in the sky. Everything that you do is dangerous. There were only a couple times throughout the book where they could actually go somewhere and just have a good time.
Yeah.
Even their little club that they went to at night, they had to be on guard. It wasn't like you can
Right.
just relax. We are in a war
You
zone.
still had people that were at attention
Right.
while these other people are having, ROR.
Hmm.
And I think, I don't know, it was really frustrating to me. And the book was like, your pick was perfect for kind of what's happening now,
Hmm.
with everything that's happening with vets right now that are losing their VA or part of their VA benefits.
Ridiculous.
To read this book and hear things that were happening to people around Nam and then be in the here and now
Right.
and have that still struggling to get benefits
Hmm.
blows my mind.
It blows my mind to go through all of that and then come home
Right.
and not even be thanked, because I think people do it for
Mm-hmm.
their own desires.
Yeah, for whatever
For
reason
whatever
serves
reason,
them.
they wanted to do this.
Mm-hmm.
They felt moved to do this.
Yeah.
You're gonna spit on me
Yeah.
when I get back, and you have no idea what I've just experienced, what I've just been
To
through over
protect
there,
you.
and you're gonna spit on me. You're not
Yeah.
gonna. So I just felt just horrible for that. And the amount of times that she went to a place, even at the vet's office, and being
So
told
frustrating.
there were no women in Nam, and her saying, I made sure men went home. That was
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. If
Like,
you didn't see a woman in Nam, consider yourself
you
lucky.
were lucky. Yes. If you didn't see a woman in Nam, consider yourself lucky.
Yeah.
Because the people who saw me either didn't see anybody else after that, or I
Right.
made sure that they got home to their families. They
In
might have
whatever
been mangled, they
condition.
might have, but I made sure that they got home.
Hmm.
So disrespectful. So it's one
Yeah.
thing to get that from everyone, but then you go to the vet, like you try to go to a
Asking
counseling
for help.
session asking for help and can't get it from anywhere. That bothered me probably more than anything else, because it's like,
Yeah.
this is out of all places, this is the one place that should be giving you support. And to your point, like you said, now just the way
They're
things
like,
are
oh well,
going.
this is for men who served in Nam. I did serve in Nam. No, combat vets. It doesn't. It's still combat.
Right.
I still had to learn all the same things that you did.
Mm-hmm.
I still had to go through basic training. I still had to learn how to do stuff and survive. And I didn't even get the basic of knowledge that I needed to. Something as simple as don't drink the water.
And then coming home and trying to work in a hospital, and they're trying to treat
Yeah.
you like a damn candy striper when I was doing tracheotomies over there as a
Right.
nurse. Crazy. What did you think about Frankie's romantic relationships throughout the book? Why did she repeatedly get involved with married men?
Because they're scumbags.
Yeah, she didn't know. And when she found out about Jamie, she's like, okay, we're not gonna. Like, I
Hmm.
felt bad that things turned out romantically for her in that way, because she really was a good girl and did do her part to, like, girl code. I get we're all over here. We could die any day, but you have somebody back home. And I can't
Hmm.
be over here doing this with you when you have someone back home.
I was heartbroken for her. The whole thing with Rye, I feel like I kind of saw that coming.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't see, I just thought that he would come home and things would get complicated. Um,
I didn't see him coming back. I didn't see
I
him
did.
getting off
I
the
felt
plane and
like
doing it.
I had a suspicion.
I just remember being like, damn, again? Like
Yeah,
another one?
I was so heartbroken for her when I felt bad for Henry, but I was happy that she was having a baby and that she was learning to love him and he
Right.
seemed to really, really care
He
about
did.
her. And he was there, a
Hmm.
psychologist. I just like, okay, this is going to turn everything around.
Hmm.
Um, and then when he came home, and for him to be like, well, I saw you there, and then his wife and girl, I about threw my hands in the air.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. But the for her to still be so hung up on him in a way that she was still in love with him broke my heart
Yes.
because that just showed you. I mean, I guess that makes sense considering that was the only person that she ever loved and had given herself to in
Yes.
that way.
Well, she loved Jamie, but she wouldn't cross that line with him. And then
But to give
he
yourself
died. Correct.
to
So then
him,
with him,
mm-hmm,
I don't want to lose him the way I did Jamie. And
mm-hmm,
then was it Rye or Jamie that she didn't say I love you back to?
Jamie,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. Um, I was so frustrated with her and it just felt so self-destructive, but it made sense considering where she was mentally at that time.
Right.
She wasn't in a good place.
I felt really bad for her at the country club with her mom when she heard something outside and she ducked
Yeah.
under the table. And to everyone else, she looks like crazy. And of course, her mom, being her mom, is like, "Get up! You're
Hmm.
embarrassing us."
Yeah.
And then at the party when Henry was the one that picked her up, like, how scary. And I think that made me understand all the people on my neighborhood Facebook page during the 4th of July who post these things like it could harm veterans, and me
Yeah.
never experiencing that. Just like, oh, it's just one night. Like, get over it. People can shoot their fireworks. You should,
Yeah.
like, no, this really takes people back to a very, very scary and difficult time in their
Right.
lives. So they're warranted to feel the way that they do.
I
And
agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this book did a lot of that for me. Did a lot of
Hmm.
like, wow, thank you for showing me a different perspective that as a normal civilian that's totally out of this arena just wouldn't even think about or
Yeah.
experience. So being able to experience it through someone else. What role did Frankie's family play in her homecoming experience? Do you think they should have been more supportive of her, and why weren't they?
She had very false expectations of what was going to happen when she got home. I mean, her dad didn't write her a single letter
Yeah.
the whole time that she was deployed for 2 years.
She
I
could have
guess
gone home after a year and she decided to reenlist.
she should have known better, but she just was extremely optimistic, I suppose. But they didn't do right by her. But I don't know. I guess having heard that I mean, one, they wouldn't have wanted her to enlist even if her brother hadn't died
Right.
or hadn't enlisted. In their opinion, it wasn't the place of a woman to go over there, and especially not somebody of their social caliber. Right. But then to have your daughter tell you that she enlisted and then find out that your son died, no, they weren't going to be happy at all. I love that her mom kept writing her. I really loved her mom's letters.
Yes.
I thought they were so funny. But yeah, I felt really bad for her because that didn't help anything.
Right.
You know?
And then to find out that you're over here doing all of this and your dad is going around telling everybody that you were
in France. Florence?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Italy.
Just.
Yeah, what a slap in the face.
Seriously. And then had to ask him to be put on the wall. Like, why am I not on the wall type of thing. And yeah, this just very difficult. And then my heart broke too when she went to go visit Rye's dad, when I think it was Barb or Ethel was like, you should throw, I think it was Barb, like, you should throw on a party. And then went to see because she knows what that feels like to have someone visit your house, or they did that for her brother. So yeah, a lot of very sad things in the book, but a very positive light. I loved when they were all living together. That's when it's like, the women, they're living together, growing together. And I love what she did at the end, because you know what? Like, and as reading the book, I, in my head, said she should do something like that. Yeah. She should get a place to where she has all these different people come. And I love that she just bought a farm and, I host women. You come here and you get yourself together. We talk about what happened in Vietnam. We talk about what we've seen because other people haven't seen it, so we can bond in that way. And I'm going to give you the support that I didn't have when I needed it, that I know is still needed out there. So I thought that was really nice. And then going to DC was,
and then finding out that Jamie was still alive, and
that's I thought this was a great book. Not gonna lie. But that, for me, I guess I was just curious of how realistic that was. Like, I wonder, okay, so Jamie, she basically
didn't see him die.
She basically, I mean, they were
coded. People get brought back all the time.
I know, they coded and they were still trying to like resuscitate when they left, and she never heard again. So it was just assumed that he was dead. She mourned him as if he had died.
Yeah.
And then Rye died, and then she sees him on the TV. He came back. So Jamie, at the end, while I loved it, I wonder how many people lost someone in Vietnam. And like, here you were in love with these two men, and miraculously, they both were not, you thought they were dead, but they actually didn't die. I guess I could just put myself in the mind of someone reading this book who actually did lose someone, and like, wow, it must be nice she had two guys that actually did come back to life type of thing. But he was captured, and it just sounds like some strange things were done to him, and he had a limp and everything, and basically said that his wife, and I could see marriages really being torn apart from something like that, because you're going through all of this emotionally. You don't feel like you can talk to someone who hasn't been there. So it's almost like, I could see why people over there would be unfaithful. I don't agree with it. I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying I understand wanting to relate to someone who is in this with you and has gone through that with you. So it makes sense that he came back and the wife just, they fizzled off, and he had his problems and she wasn't understanding. And then, now here we are again. And you know what? Like, I knew where to find you, but I just didn't, because I need to make sure that I got myself together first. Which,
wait, are you talking about Jamie?
I'm talking about Jamie at the end. Yes.
Oh.
Because she's, he basically knew that she was alive and that she was okay.
Yeah, but like, they didn't say anything about his wife.
Yeah, he had gotten divorced.
Oh yeah, he did get divorced.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Because he was always married the whole time.
That's right.
Rye was the one I was like, oh, I'm engaged, but I broke off my engagement, and y'all had already been married by that time. Yeah. So
I was really disappointed in him, because he was her brother's best friend. And I feel like knowing that her brother wasn't around, he already asked you when he was alive not to talk to his sister, and then you go and do that anyway. Why wouldn't you do right by her?
And he was essentially the one who made her, like, put the
Yeah.
spark in her to make her want to
It was
follow her
just
dreams.
such a slap in the face all the way
It was. It
around.
was a
I'm like,
betrayal.
why wouldn't you do right by her? That was
Yes.
your best friend's sister,
Mm-hmm.
who he asked you not to talk to.
Right.
I don't know. I was just so, I hated him. I hated his stinking guts. And I had a feeling. Like, but when he died, I was just like, man,
Same. Jeez.
damn.
Give her a break, you
Yeah,
know?
one thing after another after another. But one thing I will say, I mean, both of her best friends are amazing. But Barb, you talk about a ride or die.
Barb was a real one. Barb will hop
She
on a
would
plane
in
in
a
a
heartbeat.
minute.
She
Yes.
got those frequent flyer miles.
Yes.
Like when she came over and she's like, "Where are we going?"
Mm-hmm.
And just went on a road. She's like, "Yeah, but you're married. He'll be all right.
Right.
Where are we going?" And just went on a road trip with you, no questions asked.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even say when I'll be home.
Right.
You know, but that, I think, to me, that I always, from that book, you just really understood that Barb was very, very strong.
Yes.
Like through her brother's death and all the things that happened along the way, she was a rock,
Mm-hmm.
like a pillar.
Yes.
And then that moment for me, though, just really spoke to her independence as a woman and as a Black woman.
Right.
To say, we're on a red eye. We're on our way. We're on our way. He'll be fine. Where are we going?
Right.
And then just go with you.
And then just knowing that this friendship is so well established, you don't get to come in and try to penetrate this. I'm always going to be there for my girl, and you need to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And you did.
And there was no hesitation.
Right.
It was just, you know, and then I'm like, okay, I can't have man drama all the way around. Like, she's the only one that can have it. You know,
Right.
there are other friends. She's got her family and she's got the babies and life is lifing, but you know, and then having this place where people can go and every year people are coming out and everybody's working on this farm and
Mm-hmm.
doing all the things. I just thought it was beautiful. And that moment with her dad, I just thought it was great.
Yes.
For him to finally be like, I'm so proud of you.
Right. And you did something that I was never able to do.
Yeah, I got so emotional.
I got emotional with the when they each saw the brother's name or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I got emotional there, and there was another moment where I had gotten really emotional. I don't remember. I took a couple of notes.
Okay. Yeah, when she heard the name behind her, like McGrath, I was like, please be Jamie, please be Jamie. I thought it was going to be Jamie or that other guy with the messed up teeth that got out that was flirting with her and trying to, I thought it was going to be one of those two, but I was hoping it was going to be Jamie.
Oh, oh gosh, I lost it when she found out that Rye had passed away from the dad, and then Frankie, or Barb, and what's her other friend's name? Barb and Ethel came out to see her, and she just like opens her eyes after not bathing for like a week and crying, and they're just like, what's up?
Right.
Like, we're here. What do you need? I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
They're so amazing.
They are.
They were like the bond that they created over there is beyond anything you probably could do in any other circumstance.
And I love that her mom knew to call them.
Yeah.
And like they can help her in a way that I can't. And I don't even know these girls. I don't think her mom realized how close they were.
Right.
Until like they're like,
really that moment probably.
Like, we got her.
Yeah.
Like, you going down the hallway, we got her.
Yeah.
So yeah, just so amazing. So after all that, what would you rate this book on a scale of 1 to 5 stars?
If it wasn't for book club, I probably wouldn't have finished it. For sure.
Okay.
I hated it. I absolutely hated the book all the way, probably, I don't even know.
Really?
Probably until she came home.
I was not expecting that at all. Wow.
It was, and it seemed like, maybe not even when she came home. It must have been like right before then. It's a slow, steady climb. it isn't even like it's like a hill. It's
Hmm.
not even like going up high in terms of like you have action when she's doing surgeries and all that stuff,
Hmm.
but just overall it just felt like it was taking a really long time
Mm.
for me to get into it.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah, I was like, do we really, really have to do
Wow,
this
that's
book?
interesting.
And I was like, man, because I think on our previous book club, I mentioned something about like, we've been really lucky. We haven't gotten a book that any of us didn't
Yeah.
like. And I was like, oh, I spoke too soon. This book is the worst.
Wow.
And then I fell in love with it.
Okay, I'm like,
I fell in love with it, but it took me a minute to get into it.
gotcha.
So I am very grateful that we were reading this for book club because if it wasn't, like I said, I would have stopped and I would have missed out on a really good book
Hmm.
because I don't base, I don't rate books based off of like how they're written. Like, I'm not a philosopher,
Hmm.
I'm not
Yes, you're
dissecting
like, oh, the
it.
transitions were
Right,
right.
yeah, your use of this, that, and the other. Unless something sticks out to me and it's super annoying, I base my rating off of how did this book evoke emotion?
Right.
How did, how was like
How
the,
believable is the story?
yeah,
How
and
relatable?
how are these things playing into each other? Like how I can visualize it.
Character
Are you
development and all of
transporting
that.
me?
Hmm.
Yeah, all those things is how I rate a book. So, with that being said, I definitely would give it like a solid 4.
Hmm.
And that's just because it was very slow
It
moving, and
was.
it maybe because this may have been the first um, historical nonfiction book that I can recall ever reading. So I know that's not something I'm gonna pick up off of a shelf, which
Hmm.
is why this is probably the first time I've ever read this genre.
Hmm.
It's not my cup of tea.
Historical fiction, right?
Yeah, what did I
You
say?
said nonfiction.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
historical fiction. Um, but if it wasn't for book club, I really would have missed out on a really good book.
Mm.
It was really great. And I think for anybody whose bag is historical fiction, you got to read this book.
Yeah, this
Because
book
I
created
can't,
that bag for me. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think anybody, if like when you like stuff like this, you would probably I guess it just would make more sense to somebody like that. Like I said,
Hmm.
I want to be in fantasy land.
Right.
I don't want real life
Sure.
stuff.
Right. This isn't what you want from your reading. Yeah.
But I loved this book. I don't know. I think it was great.
Good.
I'm
Man, you
glad
threw
that you
me for
picked
a
it.
loop there.
Oh, I hated it in
I
the
was like,
beginning.
she said she cried and it made her emotional and that was awesome. You're like, I hated it. I'm like, how did
I
it? So you're
hated
like,
it in the
but I ended up
beginning.
loving it. I'm like,
I
okay.
did. It turned around for me. And then I was so blown away that it was probably, that was the moment, I think, when Barb and Ethel were sitting on her bed
Mm.
after Rye, she found out Rye
Hmm.
passed away. I think that was the turning point for me because I was legit tears in my eyes. And my daughter was like, are you okay? Because I had my earbud in and I
Yeah.
was walking around, cleaning up
Hmm.
and stuff, and my eyes were just watering. And I was like,
Yes.
and yeah, so I love that about it, that it could do all of that. But
Right.
you had to have gone through all those things to get
Hmm.
to the point of it really pulling at your heartstring.
Right. Right. I
Otherwise,
agree.
it would just fall flat and
I
be very
agree.
superficial.
Yeah.
So she did a really great job. How
Yeah.
about you?
A 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a 5 all the way. I love this book. Same. If we weren't doing book club, it's not something that I would have picked up either.
Mm-hmm.
So I am glad that I picked it. I'm glad that I saw something different that I wouldn't have normally read. And then I just
Mm-hmm.
went down the Kristen Hanna rabbit hole. And I will say she's got some really, really good books. But to your point of it starting a little, I didn't feel that way about this book, but she has another book that I won't mention in case we ever do a book club on it. We probably won't because I'm going to say this, but The Four Winds.
Mm.
Um, it's kind of like The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue.
Okay.
Like you need to talk about something
Mm-hmm.
long enough to get it, but then it's a okay, I get it. She can't remember.
Yeah.
Like there are some points like that, but it also doesn't feel like fluff.
Right.
It's adding to the story. It's not
Correct.
BS, but you can do without that.
Right.
So, yeah, I went down a whole rabbit hole and read a few more of her books and, some other just really good writing.
Mm-hmm.
Really good writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything in this book, The Women, that I would say could have been cut out. I feel, even though it was a very slow turn, um, I feel like everything was in its place.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't seem long-winded or redundant about certain things.
Right.
Everything seemed to just really make sense, and it all took you to where she ended up.
Yes.
And that's when you have that moment of,
Mm-hmm.
okay, all right.
Mm-hmm.
But without all of this, you wouldn't have anything.
Yes.
So,
I
yeah,
thought it
I
was
think it was
really
a great
good.
book. It's
Yes.
not my genre, and I don't see myself, even after reading this book, going to a shelf and looking for something to read in that wheelhouse. No. But if it came, like if it was for book club or something, I would definitely read
Mm-hmm.
it. But now I go into it knowing, okay, it's historical fiction, so therefore there's information that I'm gonna have to get.
Right.
As opposed to when you're in a fantasy world, you're just transported and
Mm-hmm.
time jumps and all these things. It's irrelevant
Mm-hmm.
because you have all this other stuff.
My mom hasn't read it, but I was telling her about it because, she
Hey, we told
served
my
and
mom
my
about it.
father, and just hearing her perspective of that time. And I was telling her how she got off the airplane, and she said, yes, it was bad when people came back from Vietnam. It was really bad. And she said how she, like the bracelets that she did, and how, she did that and had some neighbors that did that,
Really?
just like, you're not supposed to take them off until men come home. And I said, yes. And the whole, them reading their newspaper. What is their newspaper called? She said
The
the name of the
Stripes?
newspaper. She's like, yep, the Stripes would say one thing, and then you actually know going home. So it was just really cool to speak with someone who lived through
Yeah.
that era and also served, and just getting her. So it led to some really good
That's
conversations with her.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to see, is this really accurate? Kind of like when you watch shows like shows about healthcare and stuff. You don't know if all the terminology that they're spitting out is actually accurate unless you have experience. So it's cool that you're able to kind of say, oh, were these real things? But did you listen to the authors?
I did.
Yeah. So for her to say, they were very adamant that the names and locations of these places stay intact, like hospitals and all of that stuff.
Right.
I thought that was incredible.
And also I took my time because I understand the severity and the importance of writing something like this.
She did a wonderful job.
She
And
did.
I think anybody who served that is a woman specifically would probably be very, very proud of the way that this book was written.
I think
Because
so
it didn't
too.
turn into some sappy love story, and it didn't turn into all about drama. It felt very fact-based. Like this was the reality of this situation.
Right.
Period. I thought it was great.
I think so too.
Yeah,
Good
so it was a
book.
good pick. Thanks.
So what's your pick for next month?
So next month we are going to read A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah Maas. So anybody who's a fan of her writing, which I am, would know this series as ACOTAR. There's like a whole bunch of stuff about it. I haven't read the start of this series, so I'm excited to share that with you. And this is out of your...
Completely out of my bag, so I'm excited to see how I feel about it too.
Like, okay,
I'm curious if I'm
me...
gonna have your version of the women. Like, I hated it, but then I loved it.
Exactly. So I'm like, well, you're gonna make me read historical fiction. I'm gonna take you all the way out of your comfort zone too, because you read self-help and all these things. So, which I think is the wonderful thing about book club.
It is.
Putting yourself in a position where you're open-minded to read outside of your normal and discover new things that you like you with historical fiction. So yes, that's really cool.
I'm excited because it's a whole thing. From my understanding, A Court of Thorns and Roses is just the first one, but ACOTAR is a whole... It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's a cult fan base for this.
Interesting.
For her writing. There are people who think that her writing isn't good and don't like it, which I feel like you're going to have with anything. But the series is supposed to be amazing.
Okay.
And I'm in the process of reading her first series. It's the one that I have the physical book for, which
Okay.
is why it's taking me so long to get through it. I love the book.
Right.
I actually read the first one. I think I read up the first through the third.
So is she just known for being a series-based author? Like if she
Mhm.
write, okay,
Yeah.
man, she's got a lot to say. I love a good
Throne of
series.
Glass, or
Okay.
Throne of Glass. So that whole series collection is what I'm rereading because there was like years in between me reading like the first 1 through 3,
Mhm.
and then years and years and years, and I tried to pick up 3 and I forgot all the stuff that really happened.
Okay.
So I'm restarting book 1 of that series, but because it's the physical book, it's taking me forever.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't ever have time to just sit here and flip pages.
Right.
And then when I do, it's in the evening and then I fall asleep.
Yeah.
But her writing style and that series, I enjoyed the writing tremendously.
Mm.
Like it takes me there and I enjoy it.
That's
so
awesome.
I wanted us to share the other series,
Right.
so as not to interfere with what I've already read.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, besties. Well, we will see you at the next book club, but before that, we'll see you next Tuesday,
Yes.
of course, same time, same place. And thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.